What is up, everybody? It is Lawrence again, and today we have a sneaker that I really do not need in any way, shape, or form. That is the Alphafly Next. So why I don't need this sneaker in any way, shape, or form is this sneaker is 100% design driven to run marathons on race day. It's not made for training. It's not made for lifestyle use. It's not made for walking. And I do none of those running things that I just talked about. So for me, it's mainly testing new technology out and feeling, honestly, the pinnacle of Nike technology for what it's actually built for. Because what typically happens is this technology, the shape, everything else gets trickled down into lifestyle usage most of the time. So before we begin, I would love if you would stomp that subscribe button and stomp that like button so the algorithms can pick me up. So I don't know if people know this, but the Alphafly Next was actually the inspiration for the N354 Nike line for the Zoom Type. And the Zoom Type is one I actually did a review on. It was a Nike by You concept with a Japanese artist called Machu. I'll link that below. But it's a completely different sneaker. While there are inspirations from the Zoom pods and the shape and everything else, it's a completely different feel. It's not until we see which is not released yet in the United States, I believe it has released in Asia. It's called the Zoom Tempo Next, which is really the more consumer-friendly daily training version of this sneaker. I haven't had a chance to actually run with it, see it, or anything like that, but it looks pretty cool. I think the first colorway is going to be this Orchid colorway, which looks very similar to the Flyknit Racer that released many years ago. So I'm excited to actually try that shoe out, and that one's going to be the one that could be utilized for lifestyle usage and is not completely and utterly purpose-driven like the Alphafly. The one thing I do want to note in the box, besides the sneakers, there's really not much else besides that. It is also a $275 price point, so it's not exactly cheap. Is this drawstring bag? I'm glad I was able to pay $100 for this and hopefully $175 for the sneaker. But it's pretty nice. The material is better than I expected for a free draw bag. It's made out of ripstop nylon. And it looks pretty cool. I would utilize it. All right, so there's actually a lot to talk about on the sneaker, so let's get started. So this upper is not made out of Flyknit. It's a very see-through material. I'm not sure if you can see that. You probably can't see it too much, but it's completely see-through, which is super interesting, which makes it super breathable. So what Atom Knit is it's stretched out Flyknit. They basically steam it and stretch it out to create Atom Knit. And what Atom Knit does is really has two properties that are very different. It reduces the amount of weight of the upper by utilizing less fabric and materials. And then the second thing is it is highly water resistant. So it's not supposed to absorb water. And the reason for that is to reduce weight as a marathon runner. As you're drinking water, some of it gets on the foot. And if you're sweating, it gets on the foot. And then obviously it increases the weight of the upper itself, and it could be pretty substantial considering how light these shoes are. And then there's a huge Nike swoosh that goes up from the toe box area all the way up to the side panel over there. And then on the medial side, you have a smaller swoosh that looks like that, and that's both done in a green. Then moving up to the top of the sneaker, you're going to see reinforced eyelets based on Hyperfuse. There's actually Hyperfuse right here where the eyelets are, which Nike typically does, but there's also fuse all along the bottom here where the Atom Knit is, and then into the toe box over here. So it definitely does feel reinforced over here a little bit. Going to the back area, there's really not much to say. There is one little nylon black thing that is a pull tab, and it's pretty, there's no design cue here, it's just like that. What is good about the sneaker is that there is a reinforced heel over here, which is great. It actually holds down the foot really well, much better than I expected. On the inside, you can see that mesh-like liner that's done in that blue. There's almost like no heel slippage. One of the problems that most people have, obviously, when it comes down to an upper that doesn't fit well or is designed poorly for your foot, your heel ends up slipping, and I don't feel that at all. It's pretty thick back here, and it was actually really comfortable to walk in. Finishing it off with the tongue, you have a relatively stretchy tongue. I would say it's less stretchy than your typical Flyknit. It's actually really hard to get the shoe on. It's much harder than I expected, because most Flyknit, for the most part, you can push back a little bit because it's a stretchy knit and slide your foot in. This one I actually started utilizing a shoehorn. You probably don't need to, but it's also a $275 shoe, and I don't want to mess it up. And that's the boring part. The cooler part is the actual midsole and outsole of the sneaker. So as you guys probably know, if you're watching this video, this is made out of ZoomX. ZoomX is Nike's most lightweight and responsive foam that they've ever made. Durability is a huge issue. You can tell that right away, right out of the box. You know, it looks like there's a lot of creasing and all that stuff because of wear, but that's not true at all. It literally comes out of the box with all these creases in tow, and it only gets worse over time. The shoe's not made to be very durable because it's really made for race days. You know, you're going 26 miles, 26.2 miles, and that's pretty much what it's made for. And then you put it away until you do your next 26 miles. And so because of that, you know, durability is definitely not one of those things that this shoe is designed for. Very quickly, let's look at the back. The back of the heel swoops up just like that. And the reason for that is it helps with a rocking sensation as you kind of transition. And that's kind of the idea behind why a lot of the Nike racing sneakers have this design into it. Then going into the thick with a double C back area and heel area for where the midsole is. It's a lot of ZoomX. It's a crazy amount of ZoomX. You can definitely feel it on your foot. It feels amazing. It's soft. It's responsive. It's literally everything that you'd want a foam to be, except for the fact that it's not durable. But it's a really, really high stack height, which obviously makes it really, really kind of unstable at times if you're kind of standing still. And so that's kind of a little annoying, but you know, this is made for running. And you know, the idea behind it, even though it's probably not the most stable shoe, as you're propelling yourself forward, that feels less significant than you do when I use it for lifestyle usage, which is literally just standing around and walking, potentially a light jog if I need to go catch a train. What I really do like from a design perspective is this iridescent area over there. It's on both sides, and that iridescence looks really, really cool from a top-down view. You can see it on both sides, and it kind of like breaks up that really, really bright vault color that's on here. I just really like it. I don't know if when they say Valyrian, if that's actual color, but it looks like if Valyrian steel were real from Game of Thrones, I would love it to be that color. Then going to the front of the shoe, this is the most large redesign of the kind of percent line that Nike's had in many years, and that's the addition of these Zoom pods. These Zoom pods are extremely, extremely bouncy. So I've actually had the 4%. I've never actually had the Next percent. And the 4%, from what I remember, I basically wore it to death. And it didn't take long because that foam's not resilient at all. But that broke apart pretty quickly. And from what I remember, the 4% had a very noticeable rocker sensation, which helped propel your foot forward because of the carbon fiber plate. That was awesome, and it felt amazing at the time, and it's still probably an amazing sneaker. And I think the 4% as well as the Next percent have its own kind of reason for being, because this specific iteration of the percent line is probably a little much for most people, and I think including myself. These Zoom pods are so bouncy. They feel like you're on a trampoline. When you're jumping off of them, you know, there is a very different sensation in the back of the heel where there's a bunch of ZoomX, and what this feels like with the carbon fiber plate, which is wedged between here and the Zoom pods themselves, you literally feel like you're on a trampoline as like you kind of push this down. It almost feels like it's one of those cartoons where they have those springs on the bottom of their shoes. However, the underfoot feel is not overbearing when you're walking on them, which is obviously important for lifestyle usage. So I thought that was relatively interesting. The one thing I will say though is this shoe's definitely not made to stand in, which is kind of weird to say, but if you look at the video of my Onfeet, I'm actually like sinking backwards into my heel, and you feel that pretty significantly when you're standing still. When you're walking or jogging or running, you definitely do not feel that in any way, shape, or form. You actually feel relatively, I know I talked about not being stable, but when you're actually propelling yourself forward, the shoe feels really, really natural in its bounciness. But when you're standing still, it's actually not a great feeling. And so if you're planning on buying this shoe to stand for a while, probably not a good idea. Then going into the outsole, you have exposed ZoomX. It feels like these little areas are kind of a thicker or kind of more rigid and rugged ZoomX, but it's still ZoomX over here. And there's a bunch of rubber that looks like an alien pattern in the front. It kind of looks like an alien head. And that's super interesting, but it's really, really thick. It's much thicker than I would expect for a racing sneaker, just because I feel like They probably added ounces of or grams of weight based on the front, but it would obviously make it a little more durable. But durability is not what the shoe's made for, so it is a little thicker than I would expect. You can kind of see that on the side view. And then finally, in the middle right there, you know, you can see that fly plate. And that fly plate is that carbon fiber that I was talking about. It's really cool that you're actually able to see the fly plate branding. And obviously one of the reasons why there's a hole here, like I could literally stick my finger through into that area. Wow, that does not look appropriate for YouTube. So that was a lot to say. So what are my thoughts on the actual sneaker for lifestyle usage? First of all, this shoe is like nothing you've ever felt like before that you've put on your feet. It is, and I'm including the 4% that I had in here. I've never tried the next percent, but it's crazy feeling. Like you put it on your foot and you're like, what the hell is happening to my underfoot area? The second thing about it is, you know, when you're looking at comfort, there's zero ground feel, like none at all. It is so much on the stack height with the Zoom pods and the rubber and the ZoomX and how thick it is. You don't feel anything on the pavement at all. And that is good in many ways and bad in other ways, but obviously if you're racing, foot feel and pavement feel don't matter that much. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's kind of weird kind of being on this like high, almost like cloud-like sensation, and like you really do not feel any of the differences in height or pebbles or anything like that when you use a sneaker. So I thought that was interesting. When it comes down to walking around in the comfort of underfoot, I would say that it's really, really, really good, but not great. If you're using it for lifestyle usage, you're not pounding the pavement, you're not constantly running, you're not constantly moving, and that sinking feeling in that back heel is not, you know, it's not a great feeling, and it's not bad by any means, but it just feels very different. And so unless you kind of like, you know, some pressure on the back of your heel, it's kind of weird. As you're walking, it's a really great sneaker. It's very comfortable. It has a lot of propelling motions, and I would say there's nothing wrong with utilizing it as a walking sneaker, jogging sneaker, and obviously a running sneaker. But I would say that like for the price at $275, the comfort for walking and lifestyle isn't there. Looking at the style of the sneaker, this is probably going to be a really, really polarizing thing to say. I really love the way it looks from a tech perspective. Like, I feel like it tells the story that this is not your typical sneaker in any way, shape, or form. Just the way that rubber looks, just the way that there's missing holes everywhere. There's these two Zoom pods that are completely and utterly exposed. All that type of stuff really, really tell the story that this thing is built for a purpose and a reason and a speed. But the way it looks is just okay, and I'm one of those people that really have liked a lot of the design cues that are taken from this type of sneaker. So the Vapor Streets were something that I really, really loved, and I do like the aesthetic of a lot of the other Zoom type of sneakers that have released on the lifestyle side of things. So it's not about that, but I think the aggressiveness of all this put together, plus is kind of like this huge Nike swoosh. Just not my favorite. Maybe it was a little more muted with less green. I would like a little more. What I do really like about the color is the Valerian kind of black/blue. The Atom Knit itself is also something to say. I would say that it's actually not as good as Fly Knit for lifestyle usage. The main reason being, you're not really too worried about weight as much. And also the fact that, you don't have perspiration and worrying about your feet kind of producing crazy amounts of liquid or water for the upper to actually retain. I don't think it's that big of a deal when it comes to lifestyle usage. So the Atom Knit, while it's obviously great for the weight, it's not good enough for the sacrifice, because Fly Knit is significantly softer and much more comfortable than this more rigid Atom Knit. And while this might be more breathable, like I said, lifestyle usage is just less important. So when it comes down to sizing, I do definitely go with your true to size. I've read to go a half size down, but if I went a half size down, there's no way I could get my foot into the sneaker. And my foot is exactly in the right place when it comes down to the actual size and length. And it's got a really, really wide width, so I wouldn't worry too much about wide footers. And honestly, like, the fact that it's really hard to put the shoe on anyway makes me think that if you do go half size down, it's gonna be even more difficult. And so I would definitely recommend true to size. All right, that's it, guys. If you have any questions, leave that in the comments below. If you have any specific questions about the technology, how it feels, all that type of stuff that I did not answer in this video, I'll also put that in the comments. But until next time, this is the Alphafly Next Percent Lifestyle Review. Peace.